How's it going, everybody? So I was asked to talk about the use of the in-game mic. Why nobody uses it, why people should use it more, and well, I think everyone has horror stories to tell here, but I decided to approach this topic in a little more general manner. The way you can communicate with random players, the tools our game gives us, and how to improve them. This is not limited to For Honor, this is actually a huge problem in all multiplayer games that group you up with random teammates. The fewer people in the team, the more crucial communication is, and this very communication collides with the buzzword toxicity. So that is what we're going to talk about today, because this is a much larger problem and will become an even bigger one in the upcoming years, because more and more games have multiplayer options and more people from all different socio-economic backgrounds will want to play them. In case of For Honor matchmaking, we all know how it is. Solo queuing is an absolute nightmare because you always get the bad teammates. And if you asked every person in that 4-man team separately, they'd all tell you the same. It's the other 3 that are holding them back. So let's just pretend for a second that communication is possible. Everyone speaks the same language, chat or voice channels are active, and everyone can understand the other person. Biggest question, why would I listen to what some random says? What does qualify that other person to tell me, self-proclaimed gamer god, what to do in this match? And why is he cussing at me? I've been backcapping from spawn for years now, and then I emote spam to entertain myself. Why is he all of a sudden getting mad at me for? And yeah, I'm referencing the I just play for fun player base. Here, have that little picture to marvel at for a second. I will also link to it from the video description in case it's too small to read for the mobile viewers. Sorry for that, but take it in for just a moment. In our scenario here of the backcapping guy and the person telling them to stop doing it, both parties do consider each other as a toxic component of the match. The one is griefing, the other is being verbally abusive. To what degree is up for debate. At what point does it stop to be constructive criticism and turn into just insults? But remember, this is a perfect scenario right now. Both sides are communicating. This is a very rare case. This barely ever happens, as any form of interaction with other players is nowadays considered toxic. People will go to great lengths to drown out all other players in a lobby because from the very start they do consider them to be detrimental to their own enjoyment of the game. Be that voice over IP, the normal chat, quick chat, or even emotes. All of that is an expression of a player. They use all these to communicate. And we've seen demands from a not so small portion of the player base to get the option to remove them all. People don't want to see good fight being spammed, or thanks, whatever else is available. Every emote that is spammed is considered teabagging or worse. People do not want to interact with each other, but they do insist on playing multiplayer games. This dichotomy is a huge obstacle for game developers. Fixing this is insanely hard, and I don't know if that's even possible. And we also have studios like Riot Games that in a stroke of absolute genius decided to remove all chat completely from League of Legends. A feature that has already been opt-in. They now remove the option completely, because moderating seems to no longer be an option somehow. Many online games have issues with racism, rampant homophobia, and many sorts of appalling things. We in For Honor see it in the form of emblems, player names, and even expressed in a hero's fashion. And even Ubisoft early on decided to change chat settings. When the game first launched, the default chat setting was on all chat. This eventually changed to have chat as off, completely off. And then it was changed again to have the default setting on team. We still have the option for all chat as well. But what this shows us is that Ubisoft at least does understand that communication is a vital part of this game. Demands like the removal of quick chat hopefully continue to fall on deaf ears. Let's just look at what we currently have in-game that would let us communicate with each other, because I'm far from unsympathetic towards players turning these options off. First, in-game mic, or voice over IP. To this day you can get the IP of everyone in a match because of this feature. DDoSing is possible because of this. Something considered a federal crime, but somehow not all that uncommon. Well, that's not really a reason for why people turn it off, albeit not even helping in that regard. Let me paint you a picture real quick. You are loading into a match and the intro cutscene starts, and you're hearing new sounds you've never quite heard before. Did they change something? Is there an event going on that you've missed? It is a toddler screaming in the background because the cat shat in his toy dump truck with sand in it. But that's not what's truly disturbing. There is this teenage girl yelling at her mother about TikTok dances and how she has gone viral in this skimpy outfit, and she now wants to take it one step further and open up that OnlyFans account, which might be quite disturbing at first, but eventually you realize that this is probably the best business decision that will ever come out of this household. And all the while you hear this non-stop static, where you can't be sure whether that mouth-breathing idiot on the other hand is just inhaling his mic, or the nan is hoovering the kitchen counter with all the silverware laid out. And now I'm supposed to tell or listen to that kid on what we're supposed to do in the match. That guy has bigger problems than doing a proper starting rotation on that map. And I can't be asked to have a reality TV show in my ear. I'm sure many people feel similarly. And yes, this was an elaborate rant about mic quality in online games. And at this point, I haven't even mentioned the many people that don't use it out of fear of being ridiculed, be that for their voice, their accent, maybe a speech impediment, or God forbid a woman talks. The absolute shit I've heard people say is just plain embarrassing. I don't blame anyone for not putting up with some 14-year-old in voice chat that is otherwise too afraid to ask for extra ketchup at McDonald's. The question now is, how willing are people to enable the feature and then mute people individually in hopes that the rest of the lobby has functioning, well-adjusted mics and aren't a bunch of degenerate kids? Does the benefit of communication outweigh the potential tinnitus or verbal diarrhea every now and then? The answer has been given already, I'd say. For many players, the first thing they do in a new online game is to disable the in-game mic communication. I have no real suggestion here to change this. There's years of damage that has been done to this feature, and it's pretty much always inferior to the third-party options you have available to you. And those options will only get better over time, while in-game voice over IP seems to be a waste of development money. But what dev studios have put effort into are the communication via pings, quick messages and so on. You have standardized messages that are being sent and that have been translated to multiple languages, so no matter what language you run your game in, those will always make sense to you. This is already a huge barrier, and especially on European servers, it is very common to see 5+ languages in a chat. Not only that, For Honor, for example, also has a beacon function. You can put a waypoint for your team and highlight something that way. So even with all forms of individual communication disabled, we can still convey some things. It's obviously not ideal, but better than nothing. Demands for this to be removable, also an opt-out, are a little bit questionable to me, to be honest. We are playing a team-based game. We need to communicate somehow. It is incredibly selfish and detrimental to the fun of everyone if someone refuses to play the game as such. We should hold the developer of games accountable for not monitoring how these features are used, instead of removing oneself from the joy that are multiplayer games. Because why bother with multiplayer if you play like a single player game anyways? These features need to be expanded upon and properly moderated so actual forms of toxicity are identified and punished. And I do not mean shit like spamming good fight 3 times. As so often nowadays, toxicity is a huge topic when talking about these features. In my opinion, we need to find solutions to actually get people to communicate instead of taking away more things that could potentially be considered toxic. Because once you remove one thing, people will find other means to let their opponent know that they are the superior gaming specimen. Help players to stop giving a shit. It is a game. You will win matches and you will lose some. Acquiring the tools to cope with this, both on a personal level as well as with features in the game, is the way to move forward here. There are problems that will only get worse in the short term, but I hope this topic is taken seriously and clown babies like Riot Games stop being the industry leader when it comes to this absolute nonsense. I'm sure there are better options out there, and I hope professionals will take an interest and offer these studios solutions. Multiplayer games should be a fun social interaction, and helping to create that environment will be a key component for future games. I'm not going to appeal to each and every one here now. I know most players are still young and have plenty of growing up to do, so maybe you will think back in a few years and realise how cringe that behaviour actually was. Just hope I used that term correctly. But that's it now. I hope the video was interesting. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.